The battle out east, Knicks, Cavs. This one, not that hard for the Cavs, I'm afraid. 124-105. They're up 3-0 in that season series. Mitchell finishes with 27. Allen with 21 and 8. Garland with 17. Cat had his 25 and 13, but it's the second half of this one that was the real story. The Knicks actually had a 15-point lead at one point. The finish line is right there. We can all see it. I'm wondering, who can beat the Cavs other than the Celtics? Is there anyone else that they're going to line up with in the Eastern Conference playoffs that can take them out, Lou?
No, it's top heavy in the East. It's a two-team race. You know, even if you look at the backside of it, you know, you got Milwaukee, you got possibly Orlando, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Detroit, Indiana. Like, none of these teams I feel like are going to have what's needed to even compete with the Cavaliers or the Celtics. And the Knicks just showed it. You know, they can't even compete with them, and they're in third place. You know, there's a 8-game gap between them at third and Boston at number 2. You know, so I think this is going to come down to two teams going to battle it out. It's going to be favorable, you know, for Cleveland simply because they have home court advantage. But again, you know, we talk about the Boston Celtics, the type of year they've been able to have. With as much going on, they've been able to fly under the radar because of some of these great stories that other teams are having, including the Cleveland Cavaliers. You know, so with that, I think it's going to come down to these two teams when it's all said and done.
I mean, we had high hopes for the Knicks, right, Chandler? But it's not the same.
Yeah, and this last month, this is not the same team that we had those high hopes for, right? You take Jalen Brunson off this team, they are not even close to what they were. Now Deuce is out, Campaign's out, so they literally have 0 point guards. DeLon Wright did his thing last night, but when you're losing your 3 primary guards, I mean, this is a tall task, especially against a team like the Cleveland Cavs. But it's going to be tough. I think obviously anything can happen. We can't sort of foresee the future, but the Pacers have been rolling. I think they can kind of present a matchup nightmare for any team, just the way they play offensively and the way they shoot the ball. And if Halliburton, he's doing his thing, maybe, but I'm kind of with Lou here. The Celtics and the Cavs are just in a different class as far as everything goes with the other teams in the East.
So I know Tibbs got a little defensive after this one because the big story as well, the story within the story is that the Knicks against these good teams, specifically the Cavs and Celtics, are 0-6. And I know he said, well, we've beaten some teams with over 500, but these are the two competitors they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
There's word that Brunson could be back on Sunday. A lot of pressure on him. Is there anything they could do, Lou, with the return of Brunson especially, that maybe we'll start to look at them a little bit differently, or are they just missing a piece or two?
No, Brunson is going to be impactful, and another thing that we got to consider: by the time that he comes back, he's going to have fresh legs. He's gonna be ready to go. However, when he went out, they were in third place. When he comes back, they're going to be in third place. So they've been able to survive without him, but there's been no movement, right? So with and without him, they've shown that they're a third place team. They've competed against Boston with him. They've competed against Cleveland with him. I think they still stay in the same place. You know, I think this is going to be the team that's going to have a great first round against somebody. And then second round is going to get a little chippy for them because they're going to run into one of these teams that they haven't had any success over. So Jalen Brunson is obviously going to have a big impact. But again, impact against who? Because when it comes to these two teams, they haven't been able to get over that hump. Now, everybody else in other 500 teams, sure. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get out of the Eastern Conference, and they just haven't shown with or without Jalen Brunson that they can get past one of these two teams. But, you know, the playoffs are different. The postseason, it creates different challenges for different teams, and we'll see how they match up then. But right now, asking today, it's hard to say that they'll get over that hump.
Yeah, and it's crazy because look at all the stuff they've been through. Look at the up and down kind of roller coaster of a season they've had, and they're still the third best team in the Eastern Conference. Usually that would be that like a success, right? Like usually I'd be like, oh, home court advantage, favorable matchup in the first round. There's obviously some other great teams in the conference, but for some reason this still feels like a disappointment, which is crazy. I think just because when you add a Karl Anthony Towns, when you add, that good of a starting five, I think there was high hopes. I think there was championship, contending hopes this season. And now we're talking about how it's physically impossible for them to beat the Cavs and the Celtics. So it's crazy because they still have a chance. They aren't the deepest team. Mitchell Robinson's been in and out of the lineup all year long. Precious is now kind of getting his legs back. And I agree that with Jalen Brunson, I think it does help long term with a guy who plays a lot of minutes to have this type of rest where they're not going to shift in the rankings. They're not going to slide down to the 4 seed. They've pretty much been locked in that 3 seed for a long time now. So they kind of, and also they pretty much are going to know who they, who they're going to play in the first round. So this is all about getting Jalen Brunson healthy. This is all about preparing for that and being fully loaded when it comes to that chance where they get the Cavs and the Celtics, who they haven't had success with so far.
I hate to look ahead because it does sound like we're all kind of the same mindset that the Eastern Conference will not be New York coming out of it. And look, anything can happen. We get that. Injuries could happen. Who knows? But when you look at this Knicks team, and there's such feel-good energy when you go to the Garden, and when they're good, the fans are the best. With Tibbs and what they have now, is it enough? Or if you were to play GM for a split second, Lou, and you look at them, what would they need to add to make them be up on that upper tier?
I gotta be honest. I don't think they should overreact, right? Like this is the first year with Jalen Brunson and Cat being together, and then you work around some other pieces, DiVincenzo going out. Like they've had some turnover. I don't think this team should overreact. At the end of the day, they're the third best team in the East. They're only second to the champions. And another team that was also a 50-win team last year that stayed together, kept the same group, switched to coaching, and then they're right back in the position that they're in. So if the Knicks don't overreact, try to do too much turnover, I think they still put themselves in prime position to still be competitive with those two teams. Like, we're not saying that they're going to be a bust or they're bums or anything. They're the third best team in the East, and rightfully so, to two teams who have kept their groups together. Now, if you shake the boat again and you bring in some guys or take out some guys, you're putting yourself in a position to start over again with a new group, with a new style of play. Like, just don't overreact. Keep your guys, allow them to build chemistry, allow these teams to grow together. Again, the only two teams that are better than them are the two teams that use that recipe for success. Let our team grow and build together. So if I'm the New York Knicks, don't overreact. Just continue where you're going.
I mean, but you got to change something, right? Like, if it's not enough now, why would it be enough later?
Because they have the talent and they do have one of the best starting fives in the team. I think they need to add depth. I think with that's proven, especially with the minutes that they're playing. Guys are naturally going to go down. The way the NBA is now, there's going to be load management. I don't think Tibbs can continue to play these guys with how this season went. 38, 39, 40 minutes a night. I think that's going to come back a little bit. But you look, they score the 9th most points in the NBA at 116 points a game. They have the 5th rated best offensive rating in the NBA, and the 14th best defense, which I would think would be flipped with that starting five, with that versatility, guys like Josh Hart, OG, Bridges. I would think they'd be a top 3, top 5 defense in the NBA, and for some reason they're not. So I think over time, I think, give them a full this season, give them this offseason, I think they will come back next year. And I do think, I'm with Lou, I think they are loaded. They just need more time. They need to be healthy. They need Mitchell Robinson. They need guys like that to be healthy and available for this team to kind of reach its full potential.
By the way, we are talking about like they just have the two teams ahead of them. We're not even taking into consideration the West. Like you also have to be good enough to beat somebody in the West.